16 presented by FanDuel. Little SEC basketball talk on a Sunday morning. Elijah already calling out how late we're going to be to start this show. I'm on time, Elijah. All right. We're going to look at the bracket. It's been revealed. Max Barr on assignment this morning. We're giving Max the morning off. It's a Sunday. The man's been working hard this week. So we're going to go over the bracket, all that good stuff. You guys hop on in, and we will preview the official tournament bracket for this upcoming week in Nashville, all that good stuff. So also share some quick thoughts on where things stand when it comes to bracketology. Not a lot of updates this early, but we do have Lenardi updating his bracket as of last night before the final set of games. So we'll give you some ideas on what that will look like. So, all right. Let's just jump right in. Obviously, Alabama gets a win over Auburn last night, and then you had just a wild game between Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma winds up winning that one. So we do know what it's going to look like here. So let's go ahead and pull up the bracket, and I'll let you guys discuss and all of that. Yes, have a good morning, Floppy, the Auburn Tigers. We will talk about them here shortly. You can watch it on the replay. But all right, let's pull up the bracket here, and you guys probably already know what it looks like, but let's just take a look here. All right, so as we said, there were some kind of wild potential tiebreaker scenarios that could come in play, but the way things shook out, you didn't have a lot of those, 4 or 5-way ties that we were talking about yesterday evening. You just round out, at most, you had 3-way ties, and that was with the Vanderbilt, Tennessee A&M, and then it was Kentucky, Georgia, and Missouri. So that wound up being the case, so it actually was not that bad when it came to figuring out the tiebreakers here. But so we know Florida is the number one. The Gators, once again, get it done yesterday. Alabama's the 2 because they won against Auburn, so they obviously have the head-to-head. Those two teams, Alabama, Arkansas, finished 13-5. Played the game of the year in college basketball for my money, and yeah, they are right there at the bottom of the bracket, and will be favorites to see each other on Saturday in the semifinals. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt got the 4, as we talked about yesterday. They won the game at Tennessee, so that gave the Commodores the double bye, plus a couple other things happening, sort of made it work in their favor. So, yes, Vanderbilt, the sleeper team coming into the season. I can't say, their record maybe wasn't what some people wanted it to be after they started 16-0, but we'll take a victory lap on Vanderbilt at least getting a double bye. Since we called them a sleeper many moons ago. All right, Tennessee as the 5 because they are also part of that 11-7 mess. A&M, I don't think it really even mattered what they did last night. They did find a way to get what was probably the most thrilling game of the day, the triple overtime win at LSU. And so they were going to be the 6 no matter what because they weren't going to be able to hold any tiebreakers with Vanderbilt and Tennessee based on results. So that didn't help A&M, but they are going to be the 6 down there, potentially looking at, an interesting second-round matchup, which we'll get to. Georgia, the 7, that wound up being the case because Georgia was in that 3-way tie with Missouri and Kentucky, and, well, Georgia got the win at Kentucky, Georgia got the win at Missouri, and so you know how this works from here. And that, of course, slides Missouri down to the 8, which I'm sure for the Missouri fans watching, that is frustrating because you had every opportunity yesterday to potentially be in that double bye spot where Vanderbilt's sitting, but by losing the game in overtime to Arkansas, yes, Missouri slides all the way to the 8, and it's also not ideal because you see who can play in the quarterfinals, and I know Missouri has beaten Florida, but I think you'd much rather avoid Florida right now than the Florida maybe you saw back at the 1st of January. So Missouri's the 8, and yes, as we know, that also means Kentucky, for the first time ever, is going to play in the first round of the SEC tournament, as they will open the tournament. It's going to be a lot of blue in the crowd here in Nashville when you see them open up the tournament against LSU in a 11:30 a.m. Central Time tip on Wednesday. So probably not something we were all expecting this season, but here we are. For the Cats, LSU, if you're wondering how they got to 16, well, it's because they lost. Very simple. Had they won, you'd have had a three-way tie with Ole Miss and South Carolina, but LSU lost, so they're 3-15. They do finish with a worst record in the league. Meanwhile, Auburn and Mississippi State, in the 12-13, Auburn winds up in a tie with Oklahoma. They both went 7-11, but we just saw Oklahoma beat Auburn. So, therefore, that slides Oklahoma to the 11, Auburn to the 12. Mississippi State sits alone at 5-13, so they're the 13 seed. Then you get to Texas as the 10, Ole Miss is the 15. Texas also sits alone at 9-9 in the league this season, as they lost that game just in pretty brutal fashion to Oklahoma. And now, Ole Miss at 15, as they did not have the tiebreaker with South Carolina because South Carolina beat them. So therefore, Oklahoma 11, South Carolina 14, and that is how it all kind of shakes out on that. So if you look at the way this thing sets up, I know the Arkansas fans are saying, all right, we're coming for revenge. The Dance King has got Arkansas versus Florida for the title. Perhaps a little revenge there if Arkansas gets Alabama, then goes for Florida. The revenge tour for the Hogs. But if you look at this setup here, you do have plenty of intrigue. I think if you look at just the top part, right, you got Florida waiting for a Missouri, Kentucky, or LSU. And again, two very interesting games between Florida and Missouri this season and the game between Missouri and Kentucky. Could you see LSU potentially? Don't forget. And trust me, I know that Missouri fans have not forgotten that they did lose that game on the road in Baton Rouge against LSU back in mid-January. So Missouri, plenty on the line, and we're going to talk about that in a second when we go into the bracketology. But plenty to play for if you're Missouri. So I think you'd much rather probably see Kentucky, just because if you beat Kentucky, that's going to all but lock up, I think, your bid in the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, we'll see how that unfolds, but you could see another matchup with Florida-Missouri, Florida-Kentucky. So there's interest there, I suppose. You got kind of a fun little group there next with Vanderbilt as the 4, Tennessee as the 5. So if you're playing the probabilities, we just saw that game, Vanderbilt-Tennessee. You would think that's likely to happen again, but don't discount the streaky nature of Auburn and Mississippi State. It's very simple to me. Auburn, as I said, if they lost the game in Alabama, which they did, I said I think they've got to win the SEC tournament. I don't really necessarily see the path for Auburn. I say that telling you that we're about to look at this bracketology in a minute. And I mean, in all honesty, the bubble was a complete mess yesterday. Like, so many teams that needed to win lost. And so therefore, I don't want to say there's a 0% chance. I still think it's very low for Auburn. But when you look at the bubble, what it comes down to, and we always say this, the committee has to field a 68-team tournament. So, if these teams around Auburn keep losing, and they just keep on losing, Lenardi had them as the last team in heading into their game last night. That's how you saw the rest of the bubble unfold. Like, just Indiana loses, Virginia Tech loses, Cincinnati loses, Cal loses, like SMU loses. Like, these teams just keep losing games. So, we'll see. But first you got to beat Mississippi State and Josh Hubbard, which Auburn did not do the last time around. So don't let Josh Hubbard get hot in this tournament. That's all I'll say. See this guy playing on Saturday, maybe. But no, we'll see how it plays out there. All right, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss. There's another fascinating one. I think if you get Texas advancing, then you've got some pretty interesting possibilities. Obviously, we just saw Georgia beat Alabama. We've seen Texas beat Alabama. So that could get interesting. I still think Alabama is going to be the favorite in any scenario, but it is one where I think you kind of keep an eye on that. Ole Miss, I said going into yesterday, I'm like, hey, they played pretty well the past week and a half or so, but then they lose the game at the buzzer at home to South Carolina, and you're kind of rethinking things a little bit. But you got the Chris Beard Bowl there in the first round, so there's a storyline if you want to use something to catch your interest for that particular game. But, I mean, Texas, we're going to talk about them too. I think Texas also getting closer to that must-win type territory. They can't lose this game or they're out. Maybe. I don't know. If other teams keep losing, maybe Texas gets in just because you got to field the tournament. But I think it's one they would certainly like to win. If they lose this one, then it gets a little more dicey for the Longhorns. All right, because remember, too, we'll talk about in a second, but we still have to factor in the bid stealers. And Max and I actually had a scenario yesterday that would kind of be a doomsday scenario for the SEC, and it's not that unrealistic if you think about it. So we'll get to that in a second. Okay, at the bottom, you got Arkansas, A&M, Oklahoma, South Carolina. In all honesty, I think, and I see the Hog fans in the chat. By the way, guys, if you want to make sure I get to your comment, throw a little super chat in, because doing this solo, I'm not going to be able to get to the chats as much because I got about 14 tabs open right now. But just throw that in there, and we'll get to your comments and questions and all that. But I think if you're Arkansas, you're looking at the setup and you're thinking, yeah, this is nice. We can work with this because, I mean, the Hogs have beaten A&M, they've beaten Oklahoma, they've beaten South Carolina. Not to say that that's necessarily going to happen again, but I'd say you got a lot of confidence in any potential matchup you have in this part of the bracket. So, like I mentioned earlier, Florida's going to be an obvious favorite here, but I think if you're looking at the path for each of these teams, it does feel like Arkansas's path sets up the nicest, perhaps, going into Saturday, just based on results and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, Oklahoma, I haven't seen any updates this morning on many brackets, but the Sooners are not completely out of this thing. Somehow, some way, they have factored back into this picture. And I still think they got a long way to go, but should Oklahoma get to that quarterfinal game against Arkansas, the Sooners may have something to play for. But first, you got to play against Texas A&M team, who also, I think, still has something to play for, but yet A&M's in. I think after winning that game at LSU, I don't see a scenario where A&M gets left out of the tournament. I think they're in, and I think there's a really likely chance that A&M will avoid Dayton. I don't see that happening either. So A&M, good to go. NCAA tournament, pack the bags. I just don't really see a scenario where they're not in at this point. So we'll see about some of these other teams that are a little bit maybe further down the line. So, all right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, so that's your setup. You guys let me know in the chat right now while I got this bracket pulled up. Give me your championship game. Who's it going to be? Who gets the title game? I'm not going to give you my predictions yet because Max and I will do those probably tomorrow or Tuesday. So, who's in the championship game? Who's cutting down the nets? If it's not Florida, who's it going to be? Who's your sleeper team? All that good stuff. What are your thoughts? So, let me check out and see if our friends at FanDuel have an SEC tournament winner odds. Usually they have that kind of stuff. Let's take a look here. They don't have it updated yet. But if you are curious about where Florida stands, they're at plus 700 now for the national championship odds. Michigan plus 340, Duke plus 360, Arizona plus 550, Florida plus 700. So the Gators are inching very close to that range. The next closest SEC team is Arkansas at plus 5,000. Alabama is too, by the way. So that's worth mentioning. All right. Let's see in the chat what we got here. I'm going to pull up some of your answers. Elijah's got Florida, Arkansas. Florida by 15 plus. Sam's got Florida over Alabama. Florida, Arkansas. Surprise. William going to go a little upset action. Going to go Missouri and Arkansas. The Dance King, all in on the Hogs, beating the Gators. So, yeah, could see it. Bo is going to go Gators over the Aggies, just like it was, a month and a half ago? Those were the two teams at the top. So, Ryan's going to go Gators as the champs, Florida and Arkansas. Hogs, Gators. It's going to be a popular pick, I think. Hogs, Gators. So, yeah, I think that's probably going to happen. And then there's 9-time champion. 11 wins away from the national title. You're not wrong. You're not wrong about that. So, Razorback Pride is going to go Hogs versus Gators. Beat Alabama for revenge, then beat a little Gators for the revenge too. Would be the revenge tour for Arkansas. So, all right. Well, there's your SEC tournament bracket. So now let's shift gears and let's take a look at, and we'll get back to the SEC tournament and all this in a second. By the way, Shane's got the ultimate upset bracket. He's got Ole Miss LSU. So, Shane, if that happens, we're talking about an SEC team getting a bid stolen by someone in its own league. That could be something. So that could be something. Tyler's got Alabama versus Florida. Yeah, we'll see. Sometimes it's pretty straightforward. Sometimes it's not. So, all right, let's pull up Lenardi's bracket from yesterday. All right. So keep in mind. I'm gonna say this very clear. And Max can usually make this a little bit bigger on the screen, but I just don't have that capability, guys. Okay. So he updated this yesterday at 8:45 Eastern. So that would have been before the finish of everyone else's games last night, right? So it's before Auburn, Alabama, before Texas, Oklahoma, all that stuff. So keep that in mind here, okay? He may have updated something this morning, and I can take a look at that real quick. But so remember, like, we're not getting a just clear update just yet on what this looks like. Some other people may have it, but there's a million brackets out there, and look, I don't know. So let's see what Lenardi has here. And by the way, there's a great tweet here from Jeff Borzello, which I'm going to bring up. I'm going to throw this to you real quick before we get into the bracket, because this is going to give you a great idea of what we're looking at here, folks. So let me pull this up. This is an incredible tweet from Jeff here. All right. 1 second. All right. Take a look at this. So this is last night. Borzello was tweeting this, okay? Of Lenardi's last 7 at-large teams and his first 5 teams out of the field, 9 were in action today. All 9 lost. Every single team. So when I say that if you are a Missouri fan, if you're an Auburn fan, as ridiculous as it sounds, and I pretty much, again, gave Auburn a kind of a 0% chance if they lost at Alabama. I don't know if it's that simple anymore, because all these teams are not doing themselves any favors. There is no one that is setting themselves apart. You guys know we were very high early in the week on VCU. VCU is, they're skyrocketing now compared to these teams, because, we are looking at a scenario now where I think, again, we said it, like VCU, I think they're going to get in when you look at their body of work. They've got their tournament to go and all that. And Max and I pointed something else out, too, before we look at Lenardi's Brackettology from yesterday evening. If you think about it, the A10 is actually the conference you want to see the least amount of chaos when it comes to that tournament, because you're looking at VCU and St. Louis. St. Louis is 27-4. VCU is 24-7. You're rooting for one of those teams to win that tournament, because if they don't, are we looking at a 3-bid A10 potentially? That is obviously not what you're looking for. So, I think this is just absurd, right? It's just absurd. So, and look, I know everybody's going to keep bringing up the Lenardi stuff, but guys, you see it on every game you watch. You see Lenardi's bracket, so that's why we go to Lenardi's bracket. We use plenty of other brackets too. I'll bring up Bracket Matrix, but the problem with Bracket Matrix today is that it's not been updated. So there's really no updates to give you. It's all off of old information. So there you go. The bubble is bubblicious, and if there's a reason to expand the NCAA tournament, boy, look at this right here. All right. Now, let's take a look at what Lenardi had from yesterday evening. All right. Yeah, you may not be able to see this. Again, Max is way better at making this kind of more of a presentation thing. Okay. So as of last night, before the late games, before Auburn played, he had him as the last team in. He had Indiana as the first team out. Okay. If you want to see some movement he had on the bracket heading into this, and remember, just keep in mind, some of this has shifted around a little bit. But, you still had Alabama as a 4. You had Tennessee over here as a 5. You're looking at, let's see, who else do we have here? So Missouri was a 10. Georgia all the way up to a 7. Remember, that's something we discussed yesterday. Georgia jumping up to a 7. I think that's more and more likely now because of the teams that are losing around them, and Georgia just keeps winning. And, oh, my goodness, if you're a Georgia fan and you're looking at this little right here in Philadelphia, I'd be salivating over this possibility. The dog should be salivating, foaming at the mouth over this possibility of playing NC State and UConn. Would love it if I'm Georgia as the 7. All right. Florida's the 1 seed, so we knew that yesterday after the UConn loss, the Florida win. The Gators are up to the 1, so therefore, a little potential Ohio State showdown for the Gators, maybe. Now, they got Arkansas here as the 5, so that could be interesting, I suppose. Playing South Florida, not going to change for Arkansas, as we said, right now at a 5, but you still have all these kind of teams. Arkansas trying to play for a 4. I think Vanderbilt back in play for a 4 after winning at Tennessee. So that's worth noting for the Commodores. And remember, what's going to happen is if you're one of these 5s in the SEC, here's the good thing. With Belmont losing, as we talked about yesterday, you're likely going to have one of those 13s, projected 13 seeds, moving up to a 12, because that's going to knock out a pretty high, clear number 12 seed in Belmont. So they're out of the picture. So you could have a high point moving up. We talked about like Stephen F. Austin could move up, all that. So you may be playing what is, from the committee's perspective, a true 13 seed is a 12. So something to consider if you're one of the 5s. Kentucky over here is a 6, playing Miami of Ohio. Couldn't ask for a more made-for-television setup if that's the case. Having the Cats play potential undefeated team. What do you know? Kentucky's like, really? We doing this again? So that's something to consider. Texas as a 10. Now remember, this is before Texas lost, so this will not hold, I can't imagine. But then again, every other bubble team lost around them, so maybe it does hold for Texas. And then, of course, A&M's over here as the 10th seed against BYU. And like I mentioned, I think A&M is the team that did the best work yesterday because it's the team that won from that group of Texas, Missouri, and Auburn. A&M was the lone winner. So I think A&M is in the field, and I don't really have a lot of doubt about that. So would work out pretty well for A&M, I think. And yeah, I mean, Bo's like, hey, don't hate that draw. I wouldn't hate it either, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a BYU team without Richie Saunders. Illinois, very good, but beatable. So just gotta get it clicking at the right time. All right, so remember, I'm gonna say it again in case you're just joining. This was updated yesterday at around 8 o'clock. So this right here with Texas would change, I believe. I believe they would move down a bit. A&M getting closer to getting out of this range, and if they keep getting help around them, then we're talking A&M safely into the field. Missouri, even with the loss against Arkansas, not moving all that much. And then, you know my thoughts on SMU. They're only in because everybody else is losing right now, if you ask me. I think SMU's resume is just not that great. But it's better than these teams down here who just keep losing games. So the fact that these are the teams, and I'm telling you, and we'll get a Lenardi update probably this morning, I assume. He'll have another one that'll update. I'm looking on his Twitter right now. He has a tweet that says back to the drawing board. So, which means he's going to have to really crunch some numbers here with his bubble. I'd be shocked if in the next update, Oklahoma has not replaced Seton Hall. I think Oklahoma is going to be in here somewhere. So, we brought up Seton Hall's resume the other day. It's not good. It's poor. It's a bad resume. But Oklahoma doesn't exactly have a knockout resume either. So, I think we're gonna bring that up. But, so that's worth noting. Okay, so there's your picture. The SEC. I can't believe we're looking at this possibility still, but could be 11, could be 9. I think 10, maybe the most likely one, but we still got a lot to be determined here on that. All right, so there you go. Again, we'll try to find some kind of more clear updates, but right now I don't really have any more other brackets that I see that have been updated as of this morning. So that's where it stands. All right. What are questions, comments, thoughts do you have? Let me know. Let me quickly tell you about our friends over at Ann Collar, and then we'll get into some more stuff here. And by the way, our awards, pretty sure we're going to do our SEC awards tomorrow. Could be Tuesday, though. One or the other. we'll let you know. The SEC will reveal their awards either tomorrow or Tuesday. I can't remember what day they do it on. But, all right, let's tell you quickly about And Collar, A-N-D, collar.com. They invented the Workleisure performance menswear brand. Head over there. Check out their pants, polos, button-ups, quarter zips, suits, you name it. They got it all. Head over there for a nice discount, SEC16, 16% off over at andcollar.com. Support those people because they support us and you support us. There's a lot of support going on in that equation, and we appreciate it. So head over there, check out all the great stuff, andcollar.com. ROKFORM, ROKFORM.com. The world's strongest magnetic phone case, extreme protection, super strong magnets, rock lock, secure mounting, SEC25, 25% off over at ROKFORM. Great phone cases, great golf accessories too. So check out all that stuff over there. Icon wallets, what a bunch of great wallets they got. Head over there for a nice little discount, SEC16 for 20% off. Premium Napa leather, officially licensed collegiate wallets. Really good stuff over there at Icon Wallets. Great stuff. SEC16, 20% off over there. All right. What else we got here? You got to know your thoughts. I'm going to try to see if we can find any other updated brackets that I think that's, or at least from a bubble standpoint, that we think may be worth sharing this morning. Because again, like I said, there's just not a lot of updates this quickly, I guess you could say. But we'll check out and see what we can find on some of this. But some people are asking, I'll go back to Bracket Matrix from yesterday. Remember, it was a real jumbled mess when it came to the 5 seeds. Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Tennessee. Vanderbilt and Arkansas won, so therefore they're going to stay ahead. I think Tennessee dropping to a 6 is likely in this scenario. Not by much, but it is likely because you had Wisconsin get wins. St. John's is now the Big East champ, like all those things. So I think there's probably a good chance that Tennessee would fall to a 6 maybe. Although, they could stick it as a 5 too. But Vanderbilt and Arkansas, do they still have paths to get to a 4? Yes, but, you're going to need some help, I think. And that's where, again, you're talking about teams like Virginia, Kansas. Those are the most likely candidates, probably. Alabama still pretty much separation, I think, there with them because I think Alabama's going to wind up as a 4 no matter what happens this week in Nashville. I don't really see a scenario where Alabama falls out of the top 4 seed. So I think that's going to be the case for the Tide. But all right, let's check out some other stuff here. And what are the questions, comments? Let me get to your chats here on some of this. Let's see what we got. So let me see if we can find it here. By the way, we had some other predictions coming in on the SEC tournament brackets here as Colorado King has got Florida versus Arkansas. Florida wins. The sleeper, Vanderbilt. The chaos bracket. Don't forget about the chaos bracket. I always fill out one of those. We'll fill out a chaos bracket this week. Auburn versus Oklahoma. Now, there's some chaos right there. That's what you're looking for if you're trying to really put the main chaotic swing on this. So I'd like that. That would be all chaos, and that's what we root for here sometimes. But let me see if we can find any more of kind of the bubble picture, because I know a lot of people will continue to ask about that. And yeah, I think that you have to remember here. And what did Stephen Pearl say last night? He says, quote, "We have the best win in college basketball at Florida. If you look at our quality wins and other teams on the bubble, I don't think those teams get those wins. I think our resume stands up against anybody's." Well, listen, he's not wrong in terms of comparing it to some of the other teams on the bubble because, as I mentioned, the bubble is it's a mess this morning. When you look at all the teams that lost yesterday. But it also is a resume that leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to the overall strength of it. And the problem, though, as I said, is that you've got to field a tournament of 68 teams. And while at this point, Auburn would be looking at getting in with 16 losses, it's just, it sounds absurd, but I'm just saying it, guys. Like, I don't think it's a 0% chance anymore if the bubble keeps trending in this direction. So, this was kind of a scenario where if you were teams like Auburn and maybe Missouri to a certain extent, although I think I feel like at this point at worst, Missouri is probably in Dayton. But if you were those teams, I mean, you could not have asked for any better setup yesterday than having all those teams lose. And so you, by virtue of that, you're not really going to move very much. And so um, it's just not going to happen. So again, you gotta field a tournament here, and teams that we thought were going to play their way in have started to do that. Like TCU's in, VCU I think is going to get in. I think Santa Clara, we talked about them, they're going to get in. I'd be surprised if they don't, just based on kind of where they're going to sit in that WCC tournament. And yeah, I mean, we can look at kind of some other things, but what we learned from yesterday is that Florida's going to be the final 1 seed. I'd be shocked if that isn't the case. I think A&M played their way in. I think that, like I mentioned, some of the other ones that are kind of, I think Georgia's going to move up to a 7. I think a great chance to do that. And then you just got to figure out what this bubble continues to look like. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that Oklahoma is going to find their way into the picture. But to me, Oklahoma's got to win at least 2 games, probably 3, I would think, to get in, to have a chance at least to be close. So we'll see how it goes. Texas got work to do. It's just going to be a mess. So, gonna be a mess. So, all right. Now, I mean, look, Elijah, this year has not done the let's expand the NCAA tournament crowd a lot of favors, because we're over here debating teams that all lost in games where it felt like they had to win. Like, that's the bubble picture right now. So, yeah. So if we start getting up to the 90s, I mean, if we're getting into the 90s, just throw the whole SEC in there. So, and also the Texas-Oklahoma game you're watching last night, Texas A&M LSU, Missouri Arkansas, they don't have the same appeal, right? Because you're just like, oh, all these teams are going to get in. Missouri will be a 28 seed or whatever, and it's just like, I mean, who knows what we're doing here. So there you go. Let's see if a couple other things of note when we look at this tournament. I'm trying to see what the exact specifics were on this. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think the teams to keep an eye on, or the tournaments to keep an eye on this week for sure. You're definitely keeping an eye on the WCC, I think, because of the Santa Clara effect. I think you're definitely keeping an eye on the A10. That might be the most intriguing one right now. The ACC tournament is going to determine a lot, because how many ACC teams are right there on the bubble picture? SMU, Virginia Tech, Cal, Stanford. These are all teams that are in that range. So those are ones to keep an eye on. And really beyond that, I mean, Indiana, listen, I don't think Indiana's resume is very good, but then again, when you compare it to some of these other bubble teams, they're not either. So Indiana's a team you wouldn't mind seeing get ousted pretty early there in that bracket. So, yeah, I think that's something to look at. Let me see quickly, because I think this is something to keep an eye on here. Indiana's path in the Big Ten bracket. So Indiana is going to, surely we can just find a bracket here. I know it should be easier than this. Sometimes it's not. Okay, so we can't even get a bracket here on the Big Ten. Here we go. So, okay, well, it doesn't have, the bracket's not filled out. Well, that's great. Never mind. Indiana's got to win some games, period, I think, to get in. So that's how it looks for the Hoosiers. All right. Any other questions, comments? And we're going to hop off here shortly. And you guys let me know any other thoughts you have. SEC tournament tips off on Wednesday, 11:30 Central, Kentucky versus LSU. Just like we all drew it up back in November. So that will be your opening game of this year's tournament. And, yeah, we wait and see on everything else. So, all right. Unless you guys have anything else, can hop off. We will do our awards most likely tomorrow. Could be Tuesday. We'll wait and see. On the way out, there's a good question. Who's your SEC Player of the Year? Derek Acuff, Tommy H, somebody else? You going with another wild card winner? Give us your thoughts on the way out. Who's it going to be? Big decision to make here. Big decision on the SEC Player of the Year. Coach of the Year, I'm pretty set on. Pretty set on Coach of the Year. Player of the Year, I may have to crunch a few more numbers. See what I value most. So we'll find out. It's going to be interesting. I think that the vote's going to be interesting from just the SEC vote is going to get interesting. I'm very curious to see what that looks like because I don't have a great feel. Most years I have a great idea of what it's going to look like. This year I don't. I could see a lot of people having kind of a different opinion. And so we'll see. All right. All right, guys. We're going to hop off. Appreciate you as always. And yeah. Quickly, I'll answer your next question. If Oklahoma makes it to the Arkansas game, do they make the tournament? I will say no. I think they need to win the Arkansas game. Then I think they would be in. But by just getting to Arkansas, you would beat South Carolina, does nothing for you, and you would beat A&M, who's a 10 seed. So I don't see it. But then again, if everybody else keeps losing, you never know. But I think Oklahoma would have to beat Arkansas, just where we stand right now. But that could change. So, just my opinion. All right. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like button on your way out. Hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you know we go live. Tomorrow morning, we'll be talking about something. We'll either do our tournament picks or we'll do our awards, something like that. So, a very busy week here coming up at the SEC tournament. So, a lot to discuss, and we appreciate you, of course, as always. And talk to you soon here at Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel.